I was actually stationed in Heidelberg, Germany at the hospital. I was the non-commissioned officer in charge of the outpatient pharmacy that was actually right across from the staff duty information desk, where we would always have someone posted, 24/7 for the patients that were coming in that needed assistance. Had just had my son, he was 3 months old, and was married with my daughter and 2 stepdaughters. And my initial reaction was shock. And I said, "Oh my God, what just happened there?" And she turned around and she said, "Oh, I think that's just a movie." And I said, "I don't think that's a movie. That's raw footage. That's live." And I expressed to her, we need to call the hospital commander. She's like, "Oh no, I don't think so." I said, "Give me the phone." And I called the hospital commander, and within 10 minutes, we were going into lockdown, and the alerts were going through the hospital that, that there was an emergency and that, we were going to mission essential personnel. So my initial reaction was shock. My secondary reaction was, go into a do something about this mode right away. My leadership skills had to kick in. Once we got in contact with the hospital commander, I went into the pharmacy and went and talked to my leadership and said, there's an emergency. We need to start thinking about sending our, just keeping mission essential personnel, because it was already the feeling knowing that this is something major. And then, within a short amount of time, the second plane hit, and then we knew that, this is like a disaster going on stateside that's going to affect us that are stationed over here in Germany as well. Well, I was pretty much a lifer anyway, but it definitely, a lot of service members, a lot of folks started signing in for patriotic reasons. So it made me feel, more like, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, especially for a disaster like that. And of course I had planned on continuing my service to retirement already at that time. But yes, it did affect me military-wise. Definitely more hypervigilant and more aware of surroundings, because we were in a foreign country, even though it was peace. And we didn't know how the local nationals were going to react to the Americans being over there and such. So, yeah, definitely made me more hypervigilant and aware, and more training on, how to react to emergency situations. It definitely affected my personal life, though. Then I had a 3-month-old. My daughter was still very young. My husband at the time, his 2 daughters were teenagers, and everyone was just glued to the TV. When you're transitioning out, that's definitely an area for a lot of veterans and service members that's difficult, that they don't know what resources are available to them. So even though, because of my deployment to Iraq, I definitely, qualified as for the Transition Care Management Program. And so I was actually, even though I was working with the team, I was still one of their veterans. So having that information at my fingertips, it really helped me get through a lot of things, because when you're working with combat veterans and folks that have been through similar situations as you, it can kind of it can wear on you sometimes. So I would just sit and talk to the transition care management team, sometimes just personally do my own counseling and drive on, but it was nice to be a part of that, and it was nice to have a excellent transition care management team here at the Wilmington VA. They've been great.